From the quiet suburbs of New York to the high-stakes world of Washington politics, Joan Bennett Kennedy lived a life marked by privilege, pressure, and profound personal trials. Born Virginia, Joan Bennett on September 2, 1936, she grew up in a Catholic household that valued discipline, education, and grace. Eventually dropping her first name, Joan was known for her shy warmth and natural poise, qualities that would both elevate and challenge her as a member of the Kennedy dynasty. Her upbringing was secure, but her sensitivity hinted at deeper struggles ahead. Her father was a successful businessman, her mother a nurse turned homemaker, and Joan thrived in a world that encouraged refinement and modest ambition. Music became her passion and sanctuary. She studied piano with intensity, finding in it both purpose and escape from growing societal pressures. At Manhattanville College, a Catholic institution emphasizing service and scholarship, Joan's reserved elegance stood out. It was here she met Edward "Ted" Kennedy, the charming youngest son of America's most storied political family. Their chemistry was instant. Ted's charisma and energy pulled Joan into a whirlwind romance that ended in a high-profile wedding on November 29, 1958. Joining the Kennedy family meant more than marriage. It meant surrendering privacy. Joan was thrust into a world of glamour, legacy, and constant scrutiny. While the public saw opulent gatherings and joyful family scenes in Hyannisport, Joan quietly bore the weight of expectations that would soon test her resilience in ways no one could predict. In the early years of marriage, Joan embraced her role with quiet resolve. She stood faithfully by Ted's side as he launched his political career, which led him to the U.S. Senate by 1962. Together, they welcomed 3 children: Cara in 1960, Edward Jr. in 1961, and Patrick in 1967. Just as the Kennedy family's prominence surged during a decade of both triumph and tragedy, motherhood unfolded alongside public life. As Joan juggled family duties with the demands of being a senator's wife, she witnessed John F. Kennedy's rise to the presidency in 1961. Jacqueline Kennedy welcomed Joan into the cultural life of the White House, where Joan's refined grace and love of the arts made her a valued presence. She engaged diplomats and guests with ease, never outshining, but always elevating. Despite the glamour, Joan yearned for normalcy. She found peace in bedtime stories with Cara or moments at the piano, even as photographers camped outside, capturing her life for eager tabloids. The constant public attention took its toll, and while Joan maintained an air of calm, she privately admitted to the emotional strain of life under the microscope. Music became her refuge once again. As public demands intensified, she returned to the familiar comfort of classical compositions. Then, in November 1963, tragedy struck. The assassination of President Kennedy devastated the nation and shattered the family. Joan's grief was deepened by concern for Ted, now carrying greater responsibilities, and for Jackie, left to raise 2 children in the spotlight. Amid heartbreak, Joan remained a steady, nurturing presence. She stepped in quietly to offer support, emotionally and practically, while managing her own young family and private sorrow. Through it all, her strength showed in her gentleness. In the aftermath of JFK's assassination, Joan felt adrift. Caught in a storm of mourning, public ceremonies, and relentless media attention, she watched as the Kennedy family tried to press forward. Robert F. Kennedy rose as a new political force, while Ted deepened his Senate career, championing civil rights and health care. Joan supported Ted's campaigns with grace, if not ease. She shook hands at rallies, spoke about family and community, and played the role of devoted political spouse. Outwardly polished and empathetic, she hid the growing toll of balancing public duties with motherhood and private grief. In 1964, tragedy nearly struck again. A plane crash left Ted with a serious back injury. Joan, pregnant with Patrick, cared for him during a long recovery, managing his morale and political duties while raising 2 young children. Her strength earned media praise, but it masked growing exhaustion. Then, in 1968, another blow. Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated. Joan once again stood at a funeral, offering quiet support to Ethel and her children. Fear and sorrow deepened. She now worried constantly about her own family's safety. Withdrawn and anxious, Joan leaned on a small circle of trusted confidants. It was during this dark stretch that alcohol became her escape. A longtime social drinker, she increasingly used it to dull anxiety and grief. With the Kennedy spotlight always on her, Joan carefully concealed her struggles, fearing the fallout for her children and Ted's career. Then came Chappaquiddick. In July 1969, Ted's car plunged off a bridge, killing campaign worker Mary Jo Kopechne. Joan, pregnant at the time, stood by Ted during the media frenzy, only to miscarry shortly after. The loss compounded her private despair. Yet again, the Kennedy name was tied to tragedy. Her loyalty was visible, but so was her pain. Joan's support of Ted during the scandal masked a deepening sense of guilt and helplessness. She wondered if she could have changed the course of events, thoughts that only fueled her growing dependence on alcohol. Throughout the 1970s, Joan searched for stability. She returned to music, performing small charity recitals, and developing a quiet passion for music therapy in hospitals. She believed in its healing power, for others and perhaps for herself. Still, just as she tried to move forward, new challenges always seemed to pull her back. By the late 1970s, Joan's marriage to Ted was strained. Speculation about his presidential aspirations, rumors of his affairs, and constant media attention took their toll on Joan, who struggled with alcoholism. Though she sought rehabilitation, the pressures of public life led to cycles of relapse. Their marriage ended in 1982, and Joan faced both relief and fear post-divorce. She sought independence, teaching music and supporting charitable causes, but her personal struggles continued. Alcoholism remained a battle, with tabloids often reporting on her setbacks. Her children became her pillars of support. Ted Jr., who had overcome cancer, inspired Joan with his resilience. Cara and Patrick also forged their own paths, with Cara facing her own health challenges and Patrick entering politics. Joan's relationship with Ted evolved into a respectful, if guarded, friendship. In 1992, Joan authored The Joy of Classical Music, which allowed her to define herself beyond the Kennedy name. Despite her struggles, the book was well received and showcased her passion for music. However, in 2003, she was arrested for drunk driving, reminding the public that sobriety was an ongoing challenge. As she aged, Joan focused on stabilizing her health, moving to a quiet apartment in Boston. Tragedy struck in 2011 when her daughter Cara passed away at 51 after battling lung cancer. Joan mourned privately, handling her grief with quiet dignity, a testament to her resilience. By then, Joan had withdrawn from public life, partly by choice and partly due to the media's shift in focus. Through it all, her legacy remained one of quiet strength, finding peace away from the spotlight. In rare interviews, Joan focused on music, her grandchildren, and philanthropy, especially her dedication to mental health advocacy and supporting women battling addiction. She quietly donated to clinics and charities, and those close to her noted that she had finally found the peace she had long sought, defining herself beyond her identity as Ted's wife or a troubled Kennedy. Joan's role in the Kennedy family was less dramatic than those of her more famous relatives. She didn't lead legislative achievements or become a style icon, but she embodied a quieter resilience, enduring personal tragedies such as plane crashes, assassinations, miscarriages, addiction, and the loss of loved ones. Her legacy is subtle but enduring, seen in the musical scholarships she funded and the quiet support she gave to women struggling with addiction. Joan's story serves as a reminder that, despite the Kennedys' public glamour, they were a real family, facing the same pain and sorrow as anyone. In a dynasty marked by triumph and tragedy, Joan's life reveals that sometimes the quietest voices speak the most profound truths, the universal human longing for love, belonging, and healing. Please subscribe to our channel for more videos, and don't forget to press the bell icon.